biohacking, performance, mastery, mindset, holistic health. This is a show about getting better every single day. I'm on a mission, guys, to help over 1 million people get healthy and lose weight. Why? Because when you lose weight and get healthy, you have higher self-esteem. You have more self-confidence. And that person goes out and crushes their goal and starts living the highest version of themselves, and then they have way more impact on the world. All right, what's up, guys? It's Joel from The Hack Life, and I have got an amazing guest today. I've got Carolyn Allen. She is the founder of Beam Minerals. She's a mineral geek, and I'm really excited to bring her on because I have been doing more and more research about fulvic and humic minerals, and I've seen them to be so influential with just my own private wellness clients that I'm getting to the point where, and I was talking to her about this, I think everybody should be taking a fulvic mineral supplement. That's just become my opinion now. But so I'm really excited to get her on so she can explain more about, she knows the science way better than I do. And so I'm excited to get into the show and talk about that. By the way, Carolyn has given us an amazing discount. So if you want to, if you're after the show, if you're like, yep, I need to get some minerals, this is going to be helpful in my health journey. You can go to beamminerals.com and actually use the code JoelEvan in the checkout, and you will get a nice little discount. So check that out. Without further ado, here is Carolyn Allen.
Hey,
Carolyn,
how are you?
Hi, welcome to the show.
Good. Thank you. I'm real excited to be here.
Yeah. So, we got a chance to meet at the Biohacking Congress event in Las Vegas a while ago. And so it was really great to just meet you in person and geek out a little bit more with minerals. I have some of your product, right here. Actually, I got the, here's the Fulvic, and you guys can see if you guys are watching on video, I got the Fulvic, the Electrolyze, and then we've got the Micro Boost, which you're going to talk about. You also make some other cool stuff. I don't have it with me because my kids are out and they use that stuff religiously, but it's the spray that has a great orange scent and smell, that bergamot.
Oh, the happy lights.
Happy lights. Yes,
that's right.
And so we'll talk about that too. But I'm curious, how did you get here? I mean, how did you get here to be thinking about minerals and being that there's nothing, I'm sure anybody listening is like, what's so exciting about fulvic and humic minerals? Who cares? But for you, there's a real pain to purpose story, I think, right?
Yeah, I always say, minerals, it sounds so boring, but strangely, it's incredibly exciting, actually. And I also believe it's the most empowering conversation a person can have about their health, because there's so much that you can do and it can make such a difference in your health. I got here because I was actually in really ill health. I burned out of a corporate career and I had flatlined adrenals. I had headaches every day. I had really bad inflammation in my mouth, really deep pockets, like 5s and 6s throughout my mouth. I went to many dentists trying to figure out what was wrong with my mouth. Of course, it's a systemic issue, as most people who get into it understand. And so then I had to go through, I was trying to figure out how to heal my gut. I had been gluten-free for like 7 years, but I still had not been able to kind of get a leg up on the inflammation. My business partner suggested I try these plant-based minerals, humic and fulvic substances, and I started taking them. And within a couple months, I went to my dentist, and she looked at my mouth and she said, "Oh my gosh, what's different? The pH in your mouth is totally changed. The tissue is now pink and healthy. It doesn't look inflamed." Within 6 months, at that time, I used to have my teeth cleaned using Novocaine because I had such intense sensitivity. Since then, my teeth are completely healthy. I still have recession because it doesn't necessarily come back, but I went to the dentist just a little while ago. I have like 1s and 2s, which is completely healthy mouth and teeth and no gingivitis. I used to take Advil every day. I had headaches almost every day. I rarely get a headache anymore. I really don't get sick. I did get COVID, but that's a little bit of a different kind of thing. But I don't get colds and flu, just like the things that are running around, because I have such an incredibly healthy immune system. And so on and on. And my adrenals also, after 4 months, I went to my naturopath. We'd been trying to heal my adrenals. She had wanted me to take hydrocortisone. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And my adrenals that had been completely flatlined, like below the bottom, were 1/3 of the way up after 4 months of taking these minerals. So I was astounded, because I've been working for 4 years trying to get healthy. I mean, much longer than that because of gluten intolerance and all of that. But I mean, since I had really taken it on, and I'd spent a lot of money, and I was like, how could this little cup of minerals make such a difference, right? So I started researching, and people who know me know that I'm extremely tenacious. So I went and took online courses in microbiology and cellular biology. I went and I read all these scientific studies. When I came across a word that I didn't understand, I would research it till I understood what it meant. I talked to all sorts of scientists, people who were into plant decomposition, into soil, so the way soils are made, how minerals get into the body, how the minerals actually work in your body. And I literally had so many mind-blowing moments. I was like, why don't people know about this? This is the thing. Like, people don't know about this, and yet it is the fundamental piece of health. I was on a longevity panel at a conference recently, and there were 6 people on the panel, maybe 7 actually, and each person was talking about longevity from their perspective. And as the panel went on, by the end of the panel, each person said, well, you know, related to their specific focus. And then they said, but it's the minerals. If you don't have the minerals, then the thing I'm talking about is useless. And literally every single person was like, and it's the minerals. So at the very end, we all just went, it's the minerals. So
that's kind of where I've reached in my health journey too, as someone who just geeks out in health and has learned a lot throughout the years. And then, like you just said, it's like, why don't more people know about this? Well, yeah, here I am. Like, I'm in the health world, and I just like learned about, I'm like, what are these Fulvic? And the more I started learning about it and like the chemistry, I'm thinking, oh my God, everybody should be on this. Like this pretty much has been a standard now recommendation.
Well, and one of the things about these fulvic and humic, which are these plant-based minerals, that I say is, this is Mother Nature's technology. This is what Mother Nature designed for mineral replenishment across all cellular systems on Earth. All cellular systems on Earth, including your body, already use fulvic and humic. Your body's been evolved for millennia to utilize fulvic and humic minerals for mineral replenishment in your system. And instead, we go to the grocery store and we buy zinc, and we buy magnesium, and we buy potassium, we buy calcium, and we try to hack our body, thinking we can figure out what mineral balance we need, because some scientists at some point said there's an RDA of 320 milligrams of potassium per day. And guess what? From the research that I've done, that doesn't work. It actually makes it worse. So
why? Because people are watching right now, and they're like, I mean, and let's just imagine, right? Like, and here's some of my background in training too, right? I run a lab, a hair tissue mineral analysis or something, right? You come back low in zinc. Okay, well, guess what? We're going to supplement you with zinc till you get your levels back. So what's wrong with that? Why am I?
Okay, and tell me how often it works.
Well, I mean, if so, here's an interesting thing. What I would recommend to a client would be, hey, let's then run your labs 3 months from now, or don't. We could just, I mean, because labs can be expensive, but or don't. And then let's look at the labs, or let's just look at how you feel over the next 3 months. And then we can titrate you off of that. Or maybe you just need it during a more stressful period of time. That's kind of the old way of thinking. I'm progressing to this new way of thinking, which hopefully you kind of enlighten me. But yeah, like, and then, because I think one of the big things I have a problem with too, Carolyn, is like, when does it end then? When do I take you off of zinc?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. This is the thing. So here's the thing. Here's where I want to start. Let's do a paradigm shift. We're going to do a paradigm shift, because guess what? The body is not like a car. You need gas, put gas. You need oil, put oil. The body actually, the replenishment system doesn't work like that. So let's talk about how it does work. And the way you have to do is you start out and you say, okay, The body is made of cells. Think about it. Your entire body is made of cells. And when you break down after you die, you're going to be a little pile of minerals. That's what you're going to end up as. So the fundamental components of your body are water and minerals. Okay, so that's the first paradigm shift. You have about 37 trillion cells in your body, and inside those cells are huge numbers, in some cases, of mitochondria. In one heart cell, you have 5,000 to 8,000 mitochondria. And those mitochondria require a myriad, a full spectrum of minerals at their different stages of their specific life cycles. And when they have those minerals available, and those minerals could be things like phosphorus or molybdenum or copper or zinc or potassium or magnesium, it could be, but a lot of ones that we don't think of and we don't think we need to take, okay? So, and we should be able to get them from our foods, but we can't, because the foods now are that are grown using production farming methods are extremely deficient in minerals. Okay, so we're not getting it from the foods we eat. They call it the hidden hunger. It's actually, there's actually a term for it. Micronutrient deficiency is called the hidden hunger. And think about it, all your cells are hangry. Okay, because the mitochondria inside do not have all of those that myriad of minerals that are required. And what happens to a mitochondria or a cell when it does not have the minerals available that it needs at any particular stage in its life cycle is it goes into an anaerobic function, mode of operation. And that anaerobic mode of operation means that it can only generate, you know, the term ATP. These are the little tiny energy units that your body is producing constantly at a cellular level. And they run everything in your body. And so think about a cell that can generate, let's say, 12 units of energy when it's in an aerobic function. When it's in an anaerobic function, it can only generate like 1. So 1/12 of the amount of energy, okay? So now you've got your 37 trillion cells, and most people only have about 30%, 37% maybe of the minerals that they need in their body.
Wow.
Only that little. So that means that over 60% of your cells at any given moment could be operating anaerobically. So when you simply provide minerals to your body in a bioavailable form, you greatly enhance the energy production in your system, allowing it to do what it naturally does, which is create and maintain homeostasis, natural balance. Somebody told me, said they made a joke. They said, you know, if you were so depleted in minerals that, I mean, you really had very, very little. If you were lying in a bathtub and somebody threw in a radio or whatever, you wouldn't get electrocuted because all of the electrical system in your body runs off minerals. Isn't that mind-blowing?
It's so key and it's so overlooked, I think, because when I think too, I studied under Garrett Salpeter and with NewFit and the electric stim machine, and I'm a NewFit practitioner. And I think of how valuable the nervous system is and the current that we create and how that it regulates pain and all this stuff. And I was just talking with a client before we jumped on, and she was having like these issues of, well, first of all, she was in a stressful state and just almost like passing out and being like lightheaded. And she went to the doctor and they trumped it up as it's probably blood sugar. And I'm like, yeah, you know, it could be blood sugar, but I'm like, you're probably mineral and salt depleted. I'm like, in your body, that all affects that nervous system, and you're probably just depleted. And I love what you said, because I think of minerals now, the way I start to think about it more is first of all, there's a myriad of benefits just from minerals, but one of them is what you talked about, creating ATP at a foundational level and creating that charge, that energy.
Yes. So think about the stress that's going on in the world. And when you think about your body as having only 40% a normal person who's not supplementing well, 40% of the minerals that they need. So they're only generating a fraction of the cellular energy needed. What happens is the nervous system actually is in stress. So a lot of the stress that people are feeling is actually from the inside. And I have experienced this, and I've heard it so many times from people that when they take the minerals regularly, they experience their whole nervous system kind of calming. They begin to sleep better. They begin to have more bandwidth for dealing with the stresses of life. They find themselves to be more grounded. And it's literally because their nervous system, their cellular system is generating more energy. Their nervous system is being more effective. All of those neurotransmitters, all of that electrical system is working more effectively. So, and they're also getting the nutrition from the foods that they put in their mouth and from the other supplementation they're taking. So this is the other piece that we should really give people the cliff notes, because this, I think, is one of the most empowering pieces of the conversation. And it's this term that we call bioavailability. Okay. And we've all heard of this buzzword, yeah, it's got to be bioavailable. But what does it really mean? And I've broken it down, and I think it's really helpful for people to grasp it. So there's 3 stages of bioavailability. The first is digestion. We think we all know what digestion is, but we're going to talk about it a little. The second is absorption. So that's getting the nutrients and the minerals and electrolytes into your bloodstream, out of your gut into your bloodstream. That's the second stage. And the third stage is assimilation. And that's getting it from your bloodstream inside the cells, where it can be actually utilized by the mitochondria. If one of those stages doesn't happen, that whatever you put in, it's useless. Okay, well, not useless, but not utilized. Okay, so what we have to think about is, first of all, when you use some mineral supplement that's made from shells, rocks, bones, guess what? Your body doesn't digest that stuff very well. You're not well evolved to digest that. So they say only 10 to 12% of whatever you put in your mouth. That's why you take 320 milligrams of potassium, because you're only going to actually absorb about 10 to 12%. And guess what happens to the rest? Your body has to work really hard to eliminate the rest. So when you think about minerals, it's really important to think of them more like blood sugar, because they work in balanced pairs, calcium, magnesium. So as an example, so here's a really one that people can relate to. So when you hear about cramping, people think, oh, I've got a magnesium deficiency. But guess what? Cramping could be from an imbalance between calcium and magnesium. So let's say you just have an imbalance between calcium and magnesium. Your magnesium is actually not low. So now you add all this magnesium and you actually exacerbate the imbalance. So again, it's important to get a feeling. I'm going to give you an idea, Joel, of a really cool tool that you might be interested in for checking people's minerals levels. It's much more, it's quick, it's fast, and it's not as expensive.
Love it.
I'll tell you about that later. But so minerals work in balanced pairs. And so you don't want to it's not like a car, just throw a whole bunch of stuff in there and your body will deal with it. No, your body has to work to get rid of the excess. So digestion, you want to put in minerals that are easily digested. So the next thing is absorption. And this is the mind-blowing thing that totally changed my mind about minerals. Inside your gut, you've got they're called villi, and they're these little finger-like structures lining your gut. You have like thousands of them in a square inch, okay? And lining those things are these epithelial cells. And lining those epithelial cells are all these receptor sites. And guess what? Each receptor is specific to a specific micronutrient, mineral, or element.
Wow.
So You put 320 milligrams of magnesium in there. Yeah, you have a lot of magnesium receptors because you need a lot, but nowhere near enough to utilize 320 milligrams. So if you think about those receptor sites as being very specific, what it is your body is very, very smart. Your body is really well designed to absorb the mineral content that it needs if you make it available. So rather than putting a whole 320 milligrams of magnesium into your system, first of all, that maybe come from some source that's not very digestible, if you put it in a source that gets easily ionized, completely dissolved, so it's available to those receptors, then the receptors can grab it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So now it gets into your bloodstream. Now it has to actually get into your cells. And this is the coolest thing, and this is why we're going to talk about plant-based minerals, because what you need is things to get that magnesium more effectively into your cells, which is the assimilation process. So you can stop me because I'll go on forever.
Yeah. No, this is good. I'm going to have you a couple questions because, one of the things that you mentioned, well, and I'm just curious, just to go back to, like, let's just say my case, because this actually happened to me a while back. I had a hair tissue mineral analysis ran on me, and I was low in zinc. And the health coach said, hey, what are you doing right now? What are you taking? And I'm like, well, I take a multivitamin. It's a high grade multivitamin that has zinc in it. And I was taking zinc and vitamin C and with copper in the evening. And I was doing that because I was living a very stressful life. And I'm like, I probably need more zinc. I'm just guessing. And my zinc levels were already low. And so she's like, oh my God. She's like, just keep doing that then. So you maintain baseline. Now, let's say I went and talked to you. Would you say, stop it? You don't even take zinc. Just take the minerals. Just take the fulvic minerals. That alone will rebalance, will create that homeostasis and balance your zinc and calcium. Would that be the answer? I'm just curious.
Well, yeah. So the trick is you're taking zinc, but you're not assimilating it. It's not getting into your tissues.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've tested, you have low zinc, you take zinc, it's not working. That's why I asked you, I said, so how does it work?
Well, that's why I wanted to give you my personal experience, right? Like, here is a guy who's definitely taking it because he knows there's an issue, and the health coach was going to just recommend, take some zinc in the evening. That was going to be the recommendation. But when I had already told her I'm already doing that, she's like, oh God, well then just keep doing that because you're clearly depleted.
Right. So here's the trick. So this is a great thing. And this is why I say this is the most empowering information you're going to get. You're taking zinc, it's not getting assimilated. So guess what you need? You need some flavonoids. And that's what fulvic is. Okay. So let's talk about fulvic. Fulvic is the most effective flavonoid that is known to man. And a flavonoid is a transporter. It's an intercellular transporter. It's a molecule that's much smaller than a cell. And because of its strong electrical charge, it's a strong electrolyte, that's a technical term, and it will gather the zinc. The zinc will cling to it, and it carries the zinc and 70 plus other minerals that are part of its molecule into your cell. And now it has this amazing capacity that no other electrolyte has, which it can change its charge. It changes its polarity from positive to negative. And those things drop off inside the cell. And then the negatively charged ions, the bio-waste, the heavy metals, the toxins cling to it, and it carries those out. So it does two things. It greatly enhance nutrient and things like zinc that only work when they're inside the cells. Zinc doesn't really do anything for you in the bloodstream. It has to get inside the cells. Okay.
And that was a big thing with the C virus that we learned, right? That was a big revelation. Like, oh, hey, we need a zinc ionophore like quercetin. Everyone was stacking quercetin as a flavonoid.
Yes, as
with
a flavonoid,
zinc to get it into the cell. So interesting. But they could have just used some fulvic minerals.
Right. So again, and just from the studies that I've done, fulvic is like by far and away the most effective flavonoid you can use. So the other cool thing is that the humic molecule, so that's in the microboost product that we have.
Yeah.
It's
Microboost.
primarily a humic supplement. And the humic molecule is very large. The way I like to describe it is like a Velcro ball. It's much larger than a cell. It hangs out in your bloodstream. I like to call it Mother Nature's janitor, because it literally just hangs out in the bloodstream and it stays in suspension, and it chelates with heavy metals, binds with free radicals, exponentially the best antioxidant you can have in your system.
Wow.
And it also just binds with bio waste and toxins. And at a certain point, it gets so heavy at a molecular weight, it falls out of solution and it leaves your body through the normal elimination channels. So it's this constant cleaning, clearing. It works incredibly well with things like if you feel a cold coming on and you take a shot of MicroBoost, it will clear it out. If you have a hangover, a food hangover, alcohol hangover. In fact, I have a friend who really can't drink recently, and I went to visit her. She was saying her husband likes to drink. She's like, I can't drink with him. I said, well, let's try it. So she took a shot of MicroBoost. She drank wine all night. She usually can't sleep after she drinks. She slept like a baby and she woke up feeling great. She's like, wow. Oh my gosh, you've changed my life.
I can now be an alcoholic. Yay.
Right. I've said, well, I don't know if that's a good thing. But so the other thing that this humic molecule does is it interacts with the proteins in the cell wall, and it opens more channels. So between the humic molecule it's like if you're in a room right now and you've got a couple doors, imagine there were 6 doors in the room, more people could come in and out more quickly. That's what the humic molecule does. It opens more channels in the cell wall. And then you have this fulvic flavonoid that carries 60 times its weight of nutrients in and 60 times its weight of biowaste and toxins out of the cell.
Yeah.
So these two together are incredible. I mean, this is what I'm saying. It's a technology designed by Mother Nature.
Yeah. They're really a powerhouse. I always think of it this way, and correct me if I'm wrong. I always think of the fulvic as, like you said, I think of that, the charge, the energy. And then I think of the humic more in terms of like a binder in a sense to kind of flush out and detox and pull out some of those. So I almost think of fulvic as kind of like a driver. Maybe it's creating energy and also pushing maybe some toxins. But fulvic also removes heavy metals too, and glyphosate, by the way, right?
Right. So the best way to think about fulvic, it's the intercellular transporter. Okay. So it's bringing nutrients in. So that's why it's energy production, but it's also intercellular detoxification. And, I wouldn't say all, but most of the detoxification protocols that you'll use are all about, they'll get the liver to release toxins, et cetera. But this fulvic is doing this on a regular basis, okay? It's just in your system, slowly, clearly. That's why all the inflammation in my mouth disappeared, because the fulvic was just, and actually what I used to do is at night, once I realized it was helping, right before I went to bed at night, I would swish my mouth with it and just leave it in there overnight. So you see, so it was just physically right there, working on the tissues right there. And there's many, many scientific studies about wound healing and et cetera, because of this intercellular detoxification capacity.
Yeah. And so and that makes sense. And so here's what I always tell everyone, Caroline, too, why I'm so bullish on minerals is fulvic, especially, is it's an energizer. It creates ATP. It's a detoxifier. It suppresses candida, yeast in the gut. It helps chelate to metals. I'm like, it does so much. It's like, it's a no-brainer. Like, add it into your routine. How would you explain someone then? I guess I have a little bit of a challenge explaining the humic as much. I feel fulvic I can explain, but how would I explain? And you should also do the humic. Again, I always think of humic as it's a detox. It's just a little bit better of a binder in terms of pulling a little bit more of that stuff out. I mean,
well, no, think about it this way. So the fulvic It's this intercellular detoxification. So it will carry heavy metals, bio-waste, toxins out of the cells. But now they're in your bloodstream. You want to get them out of your system altogether.
Yeah.
That is what the humic molecule does. In fact, it's so effective as a heavy metal and toxic detoxification agent. They use it on toxic waste dumps. They take humic and they spread it on toxic waste dumps. And it's, in fact, I have a really amazing story of a guy who they had a huge oil spill in India. And they brought all these companies in with different detoxification agents to try, and they marked out areas and said, put your agent here. And then they would go, and after like 6 months, 9 months, a year, they went and tested. And after 1 year, stuff was growing in the area where his little square had like growing leaves and they were like, what? Everything else was still dead and his area was growing.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how it works in the body. One thing I always say is put it on your plants. I don't know if you can see my plant here.
The humic or both?
I use the microboost on my plants because it has both in it. It has some fulvic.
Yeah.
And the reason it has some fulvic in it is one of the interesting aspects of humic and fulvic is they have a synergistic relationship. They always occur in nature together. We've extracted out the fulvic for specific reasons because of its use, which we can talk about more. But the humic will only stay in suspension, completely ionized at a certain pH level, and because that fulvic molecule has the ability to change its pH its polarity from positive to negative. What they have observed is it appears to do that to keep the local pH in a certain range so that the humic can stay in suspension. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
So that it can gather more toxins until it gets so heavy that it does fall out of solution and leave your body. So what I say is I don't recommend people only take a fulvic supplement. You want to take both because you're greatly enhancing your body's ability, and we're all very toxified because of environmental toxins. So you want to get it out of your cells and then out of your bloodstream altogether.
Okay, wonderful. And I always tell my clients, I always tell them, if you go to the EPA's website, it will tell you, the Environmental Protection Agency will tell you, you've been bombarded by 86,000 man-made chemicals daily. Exactly. So we need something to mitigate some of that. Okay. And I love that you said that, because that was going to be my next question. Then how do you think about, for anybody that comes to see you, or if they're asking for a recommendation, you would just do both? Or I was wondering if you would pulse the fulvic and then maybe every other month do humic, or how you would think about that. But you think doing both that's the best.
We call it the gold standard is to take both. However, what I will say is if somebody is in really ill health or is dealing with mycotoxin issues or, oh gosh, the word has escaped me. If they're highly sensitive, what we recommend is that they start with the fulvic, with the electrolyze, because what you're doing is you're providing that cellular energy, just like you're talking about, so that your body's going to be able to actually respond. So first, what we recommend is people would start with the electrolyze for maybe 2 to 3 weeks before they start the microboost. That's only if if they've had mycotoxin stuff, because basically what's going to happen is they're just going to have what's called a Herxheimer response if they start with humic immediately. And Herxheimer is it's actually your body saying, cool, I can get rid of stuff, and then it will create a rash or some other symptoms with different people. It's not bad. It's just that you want to slow it down, because who wants to have those uncomfortable symptoms?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I do want to say to you, I'm really excited for you to start taking this electrolyze and continue to take your zinc, and then do a test in a couple months and see if now your zinc levels are starting to come up.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you would actually take the electrolytes and take the zinc. You would take both. Or
I
I'm
would.
just curious
Oh,
if, yeah.
yeah. Well, the other thing I actually recommend to you is, so I don't know if you ever heard of upgraded formulas. They're nano. So there's a company that I highly recommend, and it's a guy named Barton Scott. And Barton created these nanoized minerals, and he and I say that our products work in synergy, because if you have a deep depletion in a particular mineral, it's good to bring it up to some norm, because our products are about a maintenance. They're like foundation support. If
Hmm.
you have a deep depletion in, let's say, zinc, you want to try and bring it up. So, and then after a while, you might not even need to take it, because you would, once you get it up to some norm, within a healthy range, then just taking the minerals regularly might be just fine for you.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
But to fill a deep void, I recommend you should actually have him. You would be interesting. I think it would be an interesting conversation for you to talk to him.
I'll definitely
I'll
check
hook
them
you
out.
guys up. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be amazing.
But so what if you do have a depletion situation or deficiency situation like your zinc? Yes, keep taking the zinc, provide the flavonoid of the fulvic, so that you can get that zinc into your tissues.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Okay.
wanted to ask you, I wanted to go back because you also mentioned this hangriness of the cells and the
Mm-hmm.
depletion of micronutrients. And I remember I work with a lot of weight loss clients, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember reading a long time ago that a depletion in micronutrients can actually cause overeating because your
Exactly.
cells are like dying. They need food, they need
Exactly.
energy, they're starving. Please give it to me. Have you noticed that, or have you heard
Ab-
that as well? As like, hey,
Absolutely.
like some people that are overweight, or let's say, have you seen by just taking your product and rebalancing
Mhm.
minerals, wow, guess what, they lose weight?
Well, what we've heard, story after story after story, from people who had sugar addictions, who had just obsessive eating, obsessive compulsive eating. What happened, and even I was just recently, I went to a new hairdresser, and she was saying every time she tried doing keto, she just got really irritable, and was just, she's like, she just hated it because she
Yeah.
felt this feeling.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why don't you try taking the minerals and see what happens? And she said she didn't even try doing keto. She said she just started taking the minerals. And after about a month, she said, I noticed that I wasn't craving that little sweet thing in the afternoon. And
Mm,
after dinner,
interesting.
I opened the fridge, and I realized I wanted water. She noticed the difference from wanting sugar and wanting water. That her,
Wow.
so, and we've heard this. I mean, there are countless stories that I have about, so I mean, this word, the hidden hunger, it's actually a real term, and
Yeah.
it's about micronutrient deficiency. And it's literally, what I say to people is, what does a hangry cell crave? It craves sugar. That
Yeah.
means it craves carbs. It craves wherever way it can get energy the quickest.
Yeah. Awesome.
So when you provide the micronutrients and the full spectrum of micronutrients, not just the few in pill and powder form that aren't very digestible or absorbable, but in this really highly bioavailable liquid ionized format, like you put it in your mouth and it already starts absorbing. No
Yeah.
digestion required.
Yeah.
So that's another reason it's so effective. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask you too. You mentioned this, your body being anaerobic,
Mhm.
and I was just thinking as you were saying that. Well, what about cancer? Because isn't
Mhm.
cancer, doesn't
Mhm.
it feed in this anaerobic state, right? Is that right? Yeah,
Yeah,
anaerobic
but
state.
yeah, but
And
we try to never say that word, because we
I
don't want to
know,
have that kind of attention. But
totally, you don't want to, but I'm
yeah,
just curious.
but
Yeah.
I'm
By
but
the way,
you
guys,
said the
anybody
word.
listening, we don't treat, we don't
Yeah,
diagnose, we don't cure
exactly.
any diseases on this podcast. No one can do that. Only the conventional Western doctor can do that. But I'm just curious. Yeah, anything with
But
that other C word.
yeah, it is well documented that and that in fact, I'll tell you an interesting story. So there was a doctor he was asked to create something that would help astronauts stay in space longer, because astronauts, when they're out in space, they get much more radiation, and they can develop cancer from that radiation. And guess what he found? Humic minerals. That was the answer that he found. Incredibly effective. He said, basically, if we keep their bodies flooded with humic minerals, they're going to be fine.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually a report. It's a study. You can look it up. It's called the Frost Report. It's really interesting.
Report. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah. I'll send you the link to it.
Okay.
So, and he ended up creating some interesting products, but long ago. But the other important thing that we haven't talked about is glyphosates.
Yes.
And so
I just had Dr. Stephanie Seneff on the podcast.
Oh, you did?
And she's amazing.
You have to introduce me to her. I've been wanting to meet her.
She's an amazing woman, and she has this book out, Toxic Legacy. And so we talked about briefly, and she talks about it in the book, like, hey, if these are some ways, I think glyphosate, I undermined it as a health coach in the past. And I thought, yeah, it's a problem, but like, you know, it's not that big a deal. No, I'm convinced it is way bigger of a deal than we are aware of, and it's everywhere, and you can't really get away from it. And that's another reason why I'm like, oh my God, these minerals are such a big deal. That's why I've just done a complete 180 where I was like, yeah, minerals, but I'm like, no, this has got to be a staple in everyone's program. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and in my research, what happened is I just started down this trail, down this rabbit hole, which ended up with food supply and how food is growing and the problems with soils and this problem with glyphosates. And glyphosates, just so for the people who don't know, you know, it's this thing called Roundup, and it's a weed killer. And they designed it, actually, long ago, they actually designed it as a antibacterial, antimicrobial thing. They were using it in designing medicines and things like that. But they ended up using it as a weed killer. And then they designed crops that will live even when this weed killer is sprayed directly on them. And they're called Roundup Ready crops. Okay. So this is what GMO is. And I didn't even really understand this before. I thought GMO meant like making a better strawberry or something, a bigger blueberry.
That's what I always thought. Yeah.
But it's not that. It's actually what started with designing crops that wouldn't die when you sprayed this weed killer directly on them. And things like oats. Do you know they spray glyphosates directly on oats when they're drying so they'll dry more quickly?
Yeah, this is why my wife always cringes anytime I go to a coffee place and I'm like, I'll have some oat milk. She's like, is it organic? And I'm like, no, but like, who cares? And she's just like, starts shaking my
exactly. So here's the interesting thing, and you just probably talked about it with Stephanie, and she's of course way more knowledgeable about the glyphosates and the effects in the body. But you know, one of the things that people don't realize is that the way that weed killer kills the plants is by actually pulling minerals out, particularly copper and molybdenum. So that's what it also does in your gut. And you know, again, because you've already talked in depth about this, what I really want to talk about is there's actually a solution, and it's humic minerals.
Yes.
So what humic? Yeah. So what?
The fulvic is good too, right?
The fulvic is good too. Okay. So the thing you have to think about is humic actually includes fulvic, unless you even when we pull the fulvic out, we only pull some portion of it out, and there's still some fulvic in the humic. Okay. Yeah. So when I'm talking about humic minerals and their capacity, I'm really talking about both. Okay.
Yep.
So we'll just, so we won't confuse people, humic and fulvic, but specifically the humic molecule, it has the ability, it's called to adsorb. And what adsorb means, so absorb means bring into your tissues, and adsorb means keep it from absorbing. And what the humic molecule does is it actually creates an electrical film around the glyphosate. So you have the glyphosate, I'm trying to get in the picture, and it creates an electrical film around the glyphosate. So it inhibits the negative effects, meaning it keeps it from pulling out that copper and molybdenum. And it also keeps it from absorbing into your tissue. And there's been studies that are done, and we can also put these in the notes. They're very interesting studies of a 60% reduction in glyphosates in the tissues of chickens that they tested using, they gave them Fulvic. 60%.
That's fantastic, because there's a recent study showing that 80% of Americans' pee has glyphosate in it. So good.
Well, and that study was done in 2013 and 14.
Yep.
So here we are in 2022, 100% of Americans have glyphosates in their urine.
100%. Yep.
100%. So that means that you have it in your system, you have it in your gut, it's affecting your digestion. It's affecting the CP450 cytochrome enzymes in your gut. And you know, the huge rise of gluten intolerance, guess what? It's exactly the same set of enzymes that are affected by glyphosates. So no wonder we're having a huge influx of gluten intolerance.
Yeah.
So, and leaky gut. So it affects these called tight junctions.
Yeah.
Which is that first line of defense. So, and one of the things about glyphosates people also don't understand is that they mix them with these things called surfactants. And these surfactants make them more bioavailable to the plants, which are cellular systems. And guess what? We are cellular systems. And in our gut, we have all this microflora that works just like plants.
Yep.
Okay. So, you know, what I realized after studying this is that a lot of the positive effects that I had in my system were due to remediation of glyphosates, as well as replenishing the minerals in my system. So the reason I'm radically more healthy than I was 10 years ago is because I have way fewer glyphosates, and I'm constantly remediating the glyphosates that I'm taking in.
Yep.
As well as replenishing, keeping a wash of a myriad of minerals in my gut constantly so that they're available for absorption, and then providing the flavonoids for that assimilation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking too, because you had low thyroid and flatline adrenals. Do you think, is that why too? Because we know heavy metals, you know, leach onto the thyroid and deplete it. And on top of that, you know, of course, you're getting the Fulvic is creating that charge for you. So you're making more energy. Do you think that was just by adding that was like, because I mean, I just think of so many people that have thyroid, they're hypothyroid.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I do have a genetic, every woman in my family has low thyroid, though I'm actually on a journey to see if I can heal my thyroid. And it is better. I mean, I take a very, very small amount of thyroid, but I do still take it. But, you know, there's actually a whole bunch more that I'm learning about thyroid. We should wait, give me a few, give me a year, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about thyroid, because there's some really interesting pieces relative to this that I'm learning. And we're actually wanting to create a specific product that's specific to supporting the thyroid. So anyway, that's a longer story.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Good, because I feel like I've got a ton more questions, but I'm looking at the time. We've almost gone for an hour. So anything else you wanted to bring up, or anything I didn't ask you today that you wish I had? Or
nothing. I just think what I really want people to remember is that mineral replenishment is more about balance, creating balance, than it is about taking 20 pills. Those pills, those powders, those flavored drinks, I'm sorry to say, they just don't work very well. And if you have a deep depletion, you might want deep deficiency in a specific mineral, you might want to take a specific mineral for, to bring that up to some normal level. But for overall mineral replenishment, and you need a whole bunch of them, plant-based minerals are absolutely the most effective method.
Yeah.
That's really all that I want. I really just want people to rethink what they're doing with that handful of pills every morning.
Yep. I agree. Yeah.
All right.
Well said. By the way, I want to jump into just a quick lightning round questions, but
sure.
Any exciting projects that you're working on? I mean, you just mentioned one, the thyroid, but anything else?
Well, we're working on so many projects. We're working on creating humic and fulvic supplements for horses, farm animals, chickens, sheep, because all of these animals are eating grains that are ridden with glyphosates, and
Yep.
and lots of animals have gut problems as a result. So we're working on that. We're working on soil remediation and also soil amendment
Yeah.
using fulvic, using humic charged biochar. So that's a whole thing that's going to be is really huge and really exciting to help farmers get off of using glyphosates and also remediate their soils, taking to get the glyphosates out of their soils.
Wow.
This is a really huge issue because the reason they use glyphosates is because they're worried about food shortages. So this is huge. And then we're also we just are creating some backyard garden products for people who just want to use them or and in their house plants, etc. So
That's
and
great.
also pets. We're also, because your dog, you take your dog for a walk and they walk along the street, and guess what they're sniffing? Lots of glyphosates that people put on their weeds. So
Yeah, it's funny. One of the practitioners that I work with, a functional medicine doc, he takes humic binder, like a binder, pretty much every day. And I asked him, this was a long time ago, and I asked him, why do you do it? He's like, because we're being bombarded every day by glyphosate. It's in the air, it's everywhere. So I might as well take this humic
right.
supplement. So I thought that was
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Yeah. So
amazing.
and thank you so much. I can talk about minerals all day, every day. I find it scintillating.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is extremely valuable just because the more I've learned, I'm like, this is a game changer. And I think, I
Yeah.
really think it's the base. I think now I've gone away from like, oh, here's, 10 different supplements. You need vitamin D, you need omega-3s. I mean, I think those are all great, but I'm really moving to more of a spot in my coaching and just seeing with other clients is like, you probably only need like 3 things. And one of those 3 is fulvic,
Yeah.
minerals. So
Yeah, and that's what I work with a lot of practitioners, and just we do have wholesale and programs for practitioners supporting them using these with their patients and clients. But what we've heard again and again is for those clients or patients that are really struggling with ongoing chronic issues and they're not able to gain momentum in their health, when they start taking our minerals, suddenly all the other things that those practitioners are working with them on suddenly start to take hold, and they start to gain momentum, and they start going, I'm feeling better finally.
yep.
So again, really one of the most empowering things. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Awesome. Let's do some lightning round questions and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm curious, what do you think are some choices that you made that made you who you are today?
Well, what I always say is I took the red pill.
Yeah.
Meaning I chose that I wanted to wake up. And so I took like responsibility for my life. I stopped looking outward for the answers and I started looking inward. That's probably
Mm,
the biggest thing.
yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Who's, obviously you're doing so many amazing things in the wellness world. I'm always amazed at watching people's growth too. Like yours, like I'm sure you never even thought about this. Like you started this company, like, cause you're just excited about minerals. And then I just was so, grateful to hear like everything that you're creating now. Like now this is leading to regeneration with agriculture and farmers.
Yes.
And so I just
Mhm.
find that, wow, what an amazing thing when you align with your true self and you start putting out that good energy and you create this change, like you said, you
Mhm.
red pilled yourself. Look at all the new changes. It didn't it
Mhm.
didn't it didn't just end with, oh, I created some mineral company. Like, no, it just you're doing even more because you put
Mhm.
it out there and people are learning. So it's really beautiful. But I'm curious, like who in the health and wellness world inspires you?
Recently I've actually been learning about the fascia, and I've been learning about it from a woman named Ashley Black,
Mm,
and she actually designed these tools called fascia blasters. But she is this woman is so smart, and she is going to radically change the way people look at their bodies.
mm.
It's this big thing about um, what do they call that kind of fat that's all dimpled on your body?
Cellulite.
Yeah, cellulite, and she says it's not cellulite, it's a fascia problem. And if you
Oh,
have cellulite, if you think you've got cellulite and you need to lose weight, it's not about that. It's you've got unhealthy fascia. And guess where all the toxins and all of the trauma in your life is stored? In the fascia. So when you start working on repairing the fascia in your body, you start releasing all sorts of toxins, you release trauma, and you start to shift. And it's really, she's really, really an innovator. Amazing woman. She
I might have to connect with her too.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of her. This is amazing.
I'm telling you, I really think you should connect with Ashley Black. I think, she's kind of a glam woman, the way she presents herself.
Yeah.
But don't be like, this woman is the real deal, extremely smart. The information she has will change your mind about things. Yeah.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah. I'm a big reader. Are there like a top 1 to 3 books?
I have her book. I finished it. I'll send it to you. I'll send it on to you.
I was wondering if there's if there's any top 1 to 3 books that had a huge impact on your life. I'm a big reader, and I know I have a handful, but.
Well, honestly, I actually don't read a lot of nonfiction. I read fiction because I do so much research, and I'm constantly reading studies and different things, that when I want to relax and get into stuff, I actually read more. I read science fiction, actually.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I don't know if it would be relevant to your audience.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I mean, I was just curious. It's funny. I thought you might answer that, because anytime I run into researchers or doctors, they're like, I don't read anymore, but I could tell you a lot of good papers I've read. I can tell you a lot of good professors and PhD papers that stand out to me recently. So that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Last 2 questions and we'll wrap it up. Any rituals or hacks or practices that you do on a regular basis?
Oh, my biggest hack that I use constantly, every day, all day, I've been using it while we're sitting here as well, is called intentional resting. And it was a method designed by my business partner, Dan Howard. You can look it up online. It's called intentional resting. It's the simplest, most effective tool for staying present that I've ever experienced. I use it constantly, every day, all day.
Okay. Wow. I gotta
intentional resting, Dan Howard.
That's amazing. I'm going to check that out. It's funny. This idea of presence and just being present. We're in such a weird time right now with we are in a recession, and there's just fear and monkeypox, and who knows? I have no idea. Right. But there's all this craziness going on. And a lot of my clients recently have just been noticing that, just not being present. And I've been sharing with them just this simple instant present exercise they can do, but I've never heard of this. So I'm going to revisit that myself. That's a great one.
Oh, nice. What's yours?
I just use the breath, and I'll do a couple of things. One is, we hold a lot of tension in our eyes. So really just making the eyes soft, making the eyes soft, and just doing that. And then counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, getting out of that thinking state, and then just using the breath, because usually what happens is there's a tension somewhere. People are overwhelmed. They're anxious. They're either in the future or they're in the past. And so let's just get present. Using the breath is a great way to do that. And then I like to just follow the energy wherever, if it's stuck here in my belly and then I just keep breathing into that energy until it just leaves. That's a technique that I'll use.
I love that. Yeah. And I think you'll really enjoy intentional resting. Look it up. I think there's a YouTube video or something about it. Yeah. He doesn't really do it anymore, but so it's he's just moved on to other things, but it's incredibly effective.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Check it out. Last but not least, Caroline, where can people find you and the good folks at Beam Minerals?
Just go to beamminerals.com. That's it. And you'll find us. And again, we did offer your followers and constituents a discount using Joel Evan, I think, right?
Yeah. Just use Joel Evan and check out. I checked it today. It works. So go ahead and use that and get your minerals, get electrolyzed.
What a pleasure to meet you. And will we see you at the biohacking conference, maybe?
You will indeed. I'll be there.
Right on. We'll see you there.
Awesome.
Have a lovely day. And really, I so appreciate the opportunity to talk about minerals.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming on. Thanks, Caroline.
All right. Take care.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye.
Bye.